It is day 3 of doing a survey to help find unmarked graves. Today we're spending some time in the community graveyard. We do have clear records that some of the children who are recorded as having died at the residential school are buried in the cemetery.
All that setup, setting up the grid and calibrating the equipment. We're ready to go. We're trying to understand who might be in the cemetery and where children might be buried outside of that cemetery as well. Do you want to go first? The technology that we use is really the best for detecting unmarked graves. It is the most well-established method. We are setting it so we can scan every inch of the ground and build basically a three-dimensional map of what's happening below the surface. The antenna that we use really looks well at that top 2 meters, and it's looking for the shaft, like the pit that's dug for the grave to be placed in. Screw for that side. We don't actually see the body. We don't actually see any kind of skeleton or anything like that. It's not an X-ray. When a pit is dug and a grave is placed there, then the soil changes and the GPR will reflect the wave back differently. Size is the way we distinguish between a young child and either an adolescent or adult. But when you see an anomaly that's grave shaped, that's only, less than a meter, so less than 3 feet, that's a young child likely in that grave.
There's a cumulative effect of this work. You sort of start off feeling hopeful and, grateful that I'm here to help and that I have this team that are, supporting the community. But, multiple days of walking over graves and pulling around the equipment is just sort of physically, emotionally, and spiritually very draining.
The other stories we hear are about children being beaten, children being forced to, sit on their knees for time or to crouch in hot places for speaking their language. And these are often, small children, 6, 7, 8-year-olds who are being forced to sit or kneel or be treated in this way. I've been doing a fair bit of work around different residential school sites, but this one definitely hits home differently for me. There's a lot of areas in the cemetery itself with unmarked graves, but I do also come across my relatives and they're buried there. So this is closely connected to my family and our history.
A bit of a physically demanding day today. I'm having to pull around the ground penetrating radar over this area. But we've got more work to do and we'll keep on doing it.
I'm doing okay so far. Just sort of hearing some of the experiences of survivors and how they were treated in the school is pretty horrific. One experience that was shared was about children who were playing in the root cellar and came across bones. It's certainly possible that they were finding bones of a child that had been put there to hide what happened to them. Every child matters. Every child mattered. And so I think it's important to focus on telling the stories of individual children and families as much as we can. This is a very different orientation than cataloging something and putting it in a box in a museum. For me, fundamentally, doing Indigenous archaeology as an Indigenous person can really support that move toward decolonization and to return those belongings and those lands of our ancestors to our communities. I also felt strongly when sitting in ceremony, that sense that the ancestors and my relatives were very present. I have a strong sense that they're grateful that we're here doing this work, but also grateful to have a relative who can help. I feel like they're standing behind me in this place, and that that they want me to be involved and help find those children.